Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. A couple of weeks back, it was reported that Tom Felton would be officially returning to the Wizarding World. But despite the whispers and speculation, nothing concrete was ever confirmed. All we knew was that a familiar face was returning, and for most fans, that seemed like enough. However, in a recent development, we've now got some clarity on Tom Felton's return to the magical world. Draco Malfoy takes Broadway. This fall, Tom Felton will make his long-awaited Broadway debut, but he won't be starting fresh. He's stepping right back into the Wizarding World, donning platinum blonde hair once again for a limited 19-week run of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at New York's Lyric Theatre. Opening on November 11th, the Broadway production will mark the first time that a major actor from the original film franchise has joined the stage adaptation. Felton will portray an adult version of his famous character, now a father, grappling with the legacies of war, parenthood, and the past. It nearly brought me to tears, Felton said, describing the experience of slipping back into Draco's world. It was emotional and surreal. In many ways, the role represents a full-circle moment. Felton first played Draco at age 12 and spent a decade growing up on screen. Now, at 37, he returns to a character shaped by history and transformation, much like Felton himself. It's a full-circle moment, he added. The Cursed Child picks up where the epilogue of the Deathly Hallows left off, following the children of Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Draco as they navigate the complexities of magical adolescence and familial legacy. The play has received widespread critical acclaim since its West End debut in 2016, racking up 6 Tony Awards and becoming one of the most successful stage productions of the 21st century. And while I've never been a huge fan of The Cursed Child due to its inconsistencies with regards to Harry Potter canon, I must say that Felton's casting has made it all a little more exciting for me. What does this mean? While the prospect of Felton returning to the franchise in any capacity is certainly exciting, The Cursed Child is still, to me, a retcon full of canon inaccuracies. The plot leans heavily on time travel, alternate realities, and twists that often seem at odds with the logic and emotional arcs of the original 7 books. But perhaps more frustrating than anything else, many beloved characters act in ways that feel fundamentally out of step with who they were in the original books. I mean, Voldemort having a child? Come on. As a standalone experience, The Cursed Child has its moments, impressive theatrics, emotional beats, and nostalgia-driven power. But as a direct continuation of the Harry Potter story, it doesn't quite land. At least not for me. That said, the return of Felton to the Harry Potter franchise in any capacity does pose some exciting possibilities, namely the opportunity for him to reprise the role of his father, Lucius Malfoy, in the HBO series. HBOs Reboot. Alongside the Broadway headlines, multiple sources have indicated that Felton will be involved behind the scenes on HBO's Harry Potter reboot. While he may not appear on screen, at least not yet, he's reportedly taking on a creative role within the production. There's no official word on what that role entails. It could involve consulting on casting, helping to develop character arcs, or simply ensuring that the tone and texture of the reboot align with the spirit of the original films. But one thing is clear, the studio is making a deliberate effort to keep some of that original era magic alive, and I think that Felton is a vital part of that strategy. In many ways, Felton has grown into the perfect ambassador for the franchise. Not only did he spend a decade inhabiting one of its most memorable characters, but he's also spoken with depth and honesty about what the experience meant to him. I, for one, am hoping that his return to the Cursed Child and stepping into the role of an older Draco for the first time may not just be fan service. It could be a soft reintroduction, a way for audiences and producers alike to see Felton embody the maturity, presence, and gravitas required of a very different Malfoy, Lucius. It's a surprisingly perfect fit. At 37, Felton is now nearly the same age Jason Isaacs was when he first played Lucius. He knows the character intimately, he understands the dynamics between father and son, pure-blood pride and personal insecurity, cruelty, and vulnerability. He wouldn't just be playing Lucius, he'd be stepping into a role built on his own legacy. And perhaps most importantly, the idea brings with it a beautiful kind of symmetry. The son becomes the father. The actor who once played the reluctant heir now becomes the imposing patriarch. With the HBO series recasting every role and aiming for a multi-season adaptation, Lucius Malfoy will eventually take the spotlight again. And who better to play him than someone who understands the Malfoy legacy from the inside out? It also certainly doesn't hurt that Felton has openly expressed interest. I'm open to being involved again, whether as Lucius, a Hogwarts teacher, or something entirely new. I'd love to come back. Perhaps his current involvement, both creatively and theatrically, may be more than coincidence. It might be preparation. In his memoir, Beyond the Wand, Felton reflects at length on the impact that Jason Isaacs, who played Lucius Malfoy, had on him. Far from the cold, aristocratic figure he portrayed on screen, Isaacs was warm, grounded, and supportive. Someone who took time to check in on Felton, share advice, and bring levity to a high-pressure environment. And that mentorship clearly meant something. And now, years later, I suspect that Felton may be poised to pay it forward. To be the Jason Isaacs to a new generation of young actors stepping into Hogwarts robes for the first time. On the whole, I have to admit that I'm a bit torn on the idea of bringing back the old cast. On one hand, it's comforting, familiar faces, familiar energy. But on the other, it feels a bit too close to home, almost like it risks diluting the legacy of what came before. I think if they limit it to just a couple of returning characters, it should be fine, but it's definitely delicate territory, no matter how you look at it. I'm curious to hear what you all think about this. Other show updates. In other news, I've got a few updates about the HBO show on the whole, the first of which pertains to Nick Frost reprising the role of Rubeus Hagrid. When HBO announced that Nick Frost would be taking on the role of Hagrid, many fans, myself included, were thrilled. However, after some of his recent remarks, I have to say that my excitement level has dropped off a little bit. In a recent interview with Collider, Frost praised the performance of his predecessor, Robbie Coltrane, but also stressed that he wouldn't be trying to imitate it. He wants to bring something new to the character, but it was one word in particular that raised eyebrows: violent. I'm going to try and do something not different. I think you have to be respectful to the subject matter, but within that, there's scope for minutiae. I always read Hagrid as he's like a lovely, lost, violent, funny, warm child. I think the beauty of being able to do a book a season means I get to explore that a lot more, and I can't wait. He's funny. I want it to be funny and cheeky and scared and protective and childlike. That's what I'm planning on doing. On the whole, it feels like Frost is mindful of respecting the subject matter, and it's not inherently a bad thing that he's making the character his own. After all, no one can replace Robbie Coltrane. However, one word that stuck out to me from his interview was violent, a term that feels completely at odds with how Hagrid has been portrayed throughout both the books and films that came before. Hagrid may be large and imposing, but violent isn't a word I would ever use to describe him, no matter what he's capable of. Final update. One final thing I wanted to mention is that it now looks like the majority of the key roles, including the iconic trio, have officially been cast. While HBO has remained fairly tight-lipped about the specifics, they previously announced that filming is scheduled to begin in the summer of 2025. That means things are happening rather imminently, and we're likely just weeks, if not days away from more major announcements. I'll be watching every step of the process very closely and covering it all in videos, so make sure you're subscribed to stay on top of updates. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live